In this piano tutorial, we'll be learning the song Only You Can Satisfy by William McDowell. And this song is in the key of F sharp major. And I'll basically go through the song, sharing some gospel or jazz, chord substitutions, and passing chords. And at the end of the video, I'll play the whole song throughout without any interruptions. So that way you get a better understanding of how it sounds. And I'll include a MIDI download in the description, okay? So let's start off with the first verse, right? It's a very easy progression going from the 1 down the major scale, right? So 1, 7, 6, 5, 4. But playing it with chords and also maintaining the melody up top, right? So in the most basic way, it would sound something like this. Only you can satisfy, right? We're maintaining the melody up top, but we're still playing the chords. And if we analyze these chords, they're actually drop 2 voicings, right? So it's basically, so a quick recap of what a drop 2 voicing is, right? Let's say we have this F sharp major in second inversion. We take the second note from the top, so 1, 2, F sharp is the second note. We bring it down an octave. So that's how we get this sort of open type voicing for this chord. So 1, then the 7, which is technically a 5/7, then the 6 chord, then this 5 chord, and then this 4 chord, then we go back up to the 5 and then to the 6, right, to complete the progression. Then it repeats, only you can satisfy my soul, right? And in soul, instead of playing a 6, we play a 3 chord with this melody up top, right? Where we go down chromatically from C sharp, C, B, A sharp, or B flat. And the left hand plays this 1/3 chord, right? So if your hands don't reach, you can play something like this, right? You don't necessarily have to include this one up here. Okay, so then it repeats one more time. But let's move on into how I would substitute these chords for something a little bit more fuller, right? What I like to do, it's not that complicated. It's basically just adding 1 or 2 extra notes to the chord, right? What I mean by extra, I mean different from the notes that we already have. So let's say for the 1 chord, instead of playing this F sharp, I'm going to use my left hand to fill up a little bit more in the lower register. And something I always like to do is adding that second, right? That add 2 or that 9th. And then my right hand, simply playing an F sharp in first inversion, right? So only you. Then for the 7 chord, all I'm doing is playing a C sharp, again, major, add 2, right? The add 2 in this case would be right here, this E flat. It's the only different note that I'm adding. So only you can satisfy. Now this chord, it says E flat minor 7/11 or minor 11, right? But I'm not thinking about it as a minor 11 chord, right? I'm actually separating into, this is, I guess, the way that I think about this chord. E flat minor 7, the way I think about it is technically just an F sharp with an E flat in the bass. So all I'm doing to this chord to modify it into a minor 11th chord is adding again the second to this F sharp, okay? So I'm adding A flat. So if I include the E flat down here, that's how I get this chord. So I'm just opening it up a bit more and I get this E flat minor 11. So only you can satisfy. Now for the 5, it's just a regular C sharp, right? We can add the second up here if we want on E flat. And then the 4 is just a regular B major. We can make it a B major, add 2, or a B major 7, okay? This is the major 7 up here. So once again, okay? But there's something else that we can play around in order to learn a little bit more about the harmony within this song, right? We can actually substitute for some of the chords. So when we first start learning about harmony, some of the basic substitutions that we learn about is that the 5 can most of the time be substituted for the 3, right? And the basic reason why this works out is because of the notes that they share in common, right? The 5 and the 3 have 2 notes in common, right? If I superimpose them, right? If I play them on top of each other, C sharp and F are the 2 notes that they have in common. So that's a reason why most of the time we can substitute one for another. So let's say instead of playing 1, 5/7, 6, 5, and then 4, we play something like 1, 3, right? Again, we're substituting the 5/7 for this 3, and then we land on the 6. Then we can maintain the 5, or we can even go back to the 3 to land on the 4, right? It would sound something like this. Only you can satisfy, right? It sounds slightly different, but since we're still maintaining the melody of the song, we can still tell that we're playing this song. Only you can satisfy, right? And the voicings that I used in this case are 1, right? Stay the same. Then I played this B flat minor 7. Then I went to the 6, the same 6 that I played before. Then I played this 3. It's a little bit different of a voicing, right? But it's basically just a 1/3 chord. But I'm thinking about it as a C sharp, which is the 5, and a 1 chord, right? So 5 and 1, but this 1 is voiced as a drop 2 voicing, right? Where I take the B flat, bring it down an octave. So only you can satisfy my heart, right? So again, even this 5 that we used right here to go to my heart, we can again substitute it for a 3. It still works out. Only you can satisfy my heart, right? It still works out. But now we can actually go even deeper than that, right? Usually when we have a 3 chord and we think about it as a passing chord, let's say we're going to the 6 chord, right? When we play a 3 chord, we're in F sharp. So when we play a 1 chord, right, and we go into the 6 chord, which is an E flat minor, we can use the 3 as a passing chord. But usually, or most of the time, this 3 is actually a major chord. And the reason why it's a major chord is because the notes like travel easier, right? That is sort of, it's an easier way to get from the D to this E flat and from the F to this F sharp, right? Usually that's spoken about more in the theory of dominant chords, right? So we can actually substitute the 3 that we already had, right? Only you can. We can substitute that 3 for a major 3 or even a dominant 3, right? So only you can satisfy, right? And we used it when we were going to the 6 in this case, right? I guess that falls under the theory of secondary dominance, right? We're using the 3 as the 5 of the 6. Only you can satisfy my heart. let's use it again in this section where I go to my heart. Only you can satisfy my heart, right? And in this case, remember I said we were using a 3, but in this case you're reading a D diminished 7. How come this is the chord that I'm using? Technically, if we include the 3 down here, you can notice that it's a B flat dominant flat 9 in this case. So all I'm doing is just removing that root note to get sort of a more tension that releases when we approach the 6th chord, okay? So only you can satisfy my heart. Right, we wouldn't do it in most of the song, but the purpose of this is just so that you guys can learn about all the options that you have when approaching these chords, right? Something else that it's usually heard in gospel music is something like this, right? Sorry. So we're basically playing a diminished chord, one whole step below this diminished chord that we learned for the 3, right? So let's see how we could incorporate that as well as a passing chord. So you can satisfy my heart, right? That also works out. Right, so let's move on into this section of the song, right, where it goes, Jesus. All we're doing here is playing 2, right, this A flat minor and drop 2 voicing, G. Then it goes to the 1, and then to the 7, and then it goes 1 over 3, and then 4, okay? So a way that we can play this a little bit fuller is, again, same concept. I'm adding the 2, in this case B flat, so the 2 of the 2, right? G, then the 1, and then the 7. We're back to the 1, then the 3, and in this case, right, the 3 that I used before was this, right, where I have the F up here. But if we notice, the melody actually lands on F sharp. So I'm maintaining the F sharp and then the 4, okay? So once again. Okay, so what are some modifications that we can do to this progression? On the 2 that we use over here, we can actually make it a major, right? So sort of a dominant. If we think about it, the secondary dominant of the 5 is the 2, right? So we can use this major or dominant 2 as a passing chord to the 5, which is the next chord, right? 5 over 7, where it goes 2, and instead of playing a 1 to go to the 7, we can play a 2. This chord, which if we include the 2 down here, is just an A dominant, right? Or A flat 9 in this case, because we have the 9 up here. And then we resolve it to the 7, okay? So Jesus. Once again, Jesus. Right? It sort of gives it a different sort of tone to this progression. Jesus. Right? Jesus. Jesus. Or Jesus. into the next part of the song. That it's very simple. It starts off on the 1. If I take what the world has offered, it goes into a 1 or a 4 over 1. Have to come again. 6, 5, 4. Okay, so let's see what we can do to this section. Right, we started off on the 1. Right, this is known as pedal point, where we basically maintain the same bass note but change the chord up top. So we start off on the 1, and then we went into a 4 over 1, right? I'll have to come again. Right, what I did here is include a passing chord to approach the 6. So I'll have to come. Right, this F diminished 7th, I'm using it as a passing chord to get to the 6. And the way that I think about why this works, basically, I'm thinking about this half step below the 6, which is D, and I form a diminished chord from there. So this diminished chord is actually a different inversion for this one. Right, as you can see, it still has the same notes. All I'm doing is having the F on the bottom in this case, right? So I'll have to come again. Then 5, and then 4. Now the next part says, Jacob's well will never do, so I will draw from you. Right, very simple progression. 4, 1, 5, 6, then 4, 1, 5, and then it finishes on the 1. If we include those things that we learned earlier, we can substitute the 5 for a 3, for example, and also use this chord, right, where that we learned before up here, to approach the 7. So it would sound something like this: Jacob's well will never do, so I will trust in you. Right, we substituted the 5 for this passing chord on the 3, right, to approach the 6. So sorry. That's basically the whole song. So again, as I said in the beginning, I'm going to play the entire song without any interruptions. That way you have a better understanding of how it sounds, and I'll include a MIDI file in the description of this video, okay?